Brent Venables is wise to include these coaches in his game day strategy.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He's Jay Smith. You can follow him at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. Also covering all things Oklahoma and college football and top stories over there. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. And on today's show, we're going to talk about pre-fall rotations. Fall camp is coming up next week. So we're going to start getting through more of those position battles that are going to be top of mind for everybody else. We'll look at running back, cornerback today. Who are the three players that need to have a breakout season? We'll discuss that in the second segment. But first, we're going to talk about what Brent Venables had to say about his game day strategy, game day operations last week at SEC Media Days. George Stoya put together a great piece over there at Sooner Scoop. You can go check that piece out over there. But what he talked about was basically a collaborative approach, integrating a lot of his assistants into the game day strategy, Jay.
It makes sense. That's what all the best coaches do. I know that Saban and Kirby Smart does that. They integrate a lot of their top assistants and get them going, especially because if you're going to be grooming people to get jobs at some point, you're going to need them to have some sort of a responsibility, or if you're grooming them to potentially take over if you expect someone else to possibly leave. So I know that a lot of fans are a little nervous about Brent Venables going into being the play caller, which I don't understand why, because a lot of coaches in not only college football, but the NFL, they call their own plays, John. This is not an uncommon thing. Sark calls the offense down there at Texas. Lane Kiffin just recently gave up play calling on the offensive side to focus on the quote-unquote CEO role. Clark Lee over at Vanderbilt, he called the defense last season for them and let Tim Beck run the offense with Diego Pavia. They saw some success from that, and now Clark Lee is passing that on to one of his assistants. And so BV's got it set perfectly with the staff that he put around him. The best part is that because Wes Goodwin has been a defensive coordinator, Nate Dreiling has been a head coach or interim head coach and a defensive coordinator, he's got a couple guys that have actually done the job long enough to be able to help and assist as needed. At some point, one of them will take over as the DC, in my personal opinion. But then on offense, that's why you bring in Kevin Wilson. John, if you really think about it, former head coach, was at Oklahoma as an OC. Basically, Bob Stoops let him do his things while Stoops did his things on the defensive side. That's something that you should expect. And so the good thing is BV mentioned just how great of a staff he has to help him.
You want to have input from your staff. Now, you don't need everybody speaking into the headset during certain situations, but they're going to have delegated roles. And a guy like Kevin Wilson is going to have a little bit bigger voice in the game day operation because he'll kind of be able to keep everything coordinated, as Brent Venables is maybe making some adjustments on the sideline for the defense between drives. Ben Arbuckle is working with the offense. If there are things that Venables needs to be aware of, a 4th and 1 situation, a goal to go situation, those kind of things that are going to come up. Well, Venables mentioned, they've got all the analytics that are constantly talking to him about, hey, what are we going to do in this situation? What will we do in that situation? And then he's got a guy that's experienced like a Kevin Wilson, who is one of the better offensive minds out there. Like the success that they had, in the late 2000s, I guess, just before the 2010s, a lot of that was Kevin Wilson, man. And he was able to pass on successful offenses as well. So that's a dude that's got a lot of experience in the coaching ranks and can help kind of coordinate everything. Even though Ben Arbuckle is the offensive coordinator, Kevin Wilson can not oversee as in he's in charge of the offense, but just from a 10,000 foot perspective, just be like, okay, where are we at as a team right now? What do we need to consider moving forward? And he can, again, on the practice field, and this is the benefit to having an unlimited sized coaching staff, he can help with offensive line development, tight end development, quarterback development. Even though you've got Arbuckle and Kusiewski, you've got a guy in Wilson that can also pitch in when he's got ideas as well. So it's not a bad thing. I know people are jumping to conclusions like, oh, Brent Venables needs help. Well, you know what? Maybe he does, and that's okay. Like, if we've seen anything from Brent Venables during his tenure as the head coach, if there's an area that is a weakness, sometimes it's the game day operation. And so we want him to get better at that. So having a few more voices, some experienced voices to chime in these big situations, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, he needs help. Every coach needs help. And no coach can do this by themselves. That's why they hire offensive and defensive coordinators, and they hire staff members for positions, et cetera, so on and so forth. But what Kevin Wilson also brings you in is game management capabilities. Someone that I think he was solid at Indiana. Those offenses at Indiana were really good under Kevin Wilson. He just couldn't bring it to the way that Curt Cignetti was able to, because, he didn't have a transfer portal. He had to do all the recruiting from scratch, where Cignetti was able to bring in some pretty solid talent with him from James Madison to be able to quickly turn that team around. But I digress on that. I think Kevin Wilson's input's going to be helpful in just helping even Ben Arbuckle be groomed to become a head coach at some point. He is. That's the one thing that we know is offensive-minded coaches are always hired a lot faster than defensive guys. And if Ben goes out there and he starts to fry a bunch of SEC defenses, guess what? He's going to be one of the first names on somebody's billboard or big board to try to get hired for a job. And so in order to be prepared for that, you're going to need to listen and learn from other former head coaches and try not to make any of the mistakes they made or learn from them on what they did. And I think that having Kevin Wilson gives you that. And so, again, having those defensive guys like with Dreiling as well as Wes Goodwin, who has defensive coordinator experience, they understand what to do to fix things. Because remember, Goodwin was with BV when those really good defenses at Clemson existed, John. So I guess to me, who's going to probably be the most important one? I'd say Kevin Wilson's probably the most important on offense to help Ben with being able to just manage the game itself. But on defense, I mean, who do you think outside of the two linebacker coaches is probably going to end up stepping up?
Well, it's interesting because, Jay Valai and Todd Bates have those co-defensive coordinator titles and associate or assistant head coach titles. And I think those are important voices, in Brent Venables' ear. And, are they guys that are going to be defensive coordinators one day? We'll see. But they carry a lot of weight with Brent Venables, and their voices carry a lot of weight. So I think they're important. I think Brandon Hall is an important voice. Again, a guy that's got defensive coordinator experience before coming to Oklahoma. So I think it's just a good staff altogether because you've got continuity, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, where your linebacker coaches, your defensive coordinator is about the only thing that's turned over under Brent Venables. You've kept the same cornerbacks, safeties, defensive end, and defensive tackle coaches throughout his entire 4 years so far. And we've seen the development that's taken place on that side of the ball. Offensively, you've had turnover at offensive coordinator, but again, it's all the same guys. Now, for better or for worse, again, the injuries happened. You can't blame everything on the coaches, but having that continuity helps to improve communication, especially in game day settings.
That's true. Having someone that consistency and continuity is important. And, that's kind of the things that they were trying here. And unfortunately, it did not work out, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, that's still critical in order to be successful when it comes to playing, especially in the SEC. We just unfortunately had bad luck. But outside of that conversation, no, I think Valai is probably the one for me because I know that he wants to be a defensive coordinator at some point. You can see, and he does a really good job of recruiting. He's done a very good job of getting some bigger, stronger corners to really be prepared for the SEC. And so I think that he's probably the one that, and I know that his name has floated around with jobs over the last couple of years anyway. So I think he wants to get him a DC role. I think he's going to be the one that's probably going to be the one that ends up stepping up the most. Because I know that we've had Todd Bates conversations where people have offered him jobs. You've had the conversations with Miguel Chavis, people have offered him jobs. And a lot, Brandon Hall. But I know a lot of them are very loyal to BV. So that's the good thing. The defensive side, we haven't seen any turnover. That's probably the biggest plus outside of, Zach Alley leaving and Ted Roof in linebacker spot, which is the BV position, so doesn't count to me. But you're lucky that everywhere else you haven't seen turnover. And so, yeah, I think making sure everyone's integrated in the strategy is probably also why you've been able to hang on to all these coaches.
And that is going to be important this year as you go into SEC play. You're going to be playing several more closer games than you did last year. Having everybody on the same page, communicating well is going to be important to having effective end of game success. Who needs to step up? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Have you ever decided last minute to head to a ball game with family or friends? Maybe it's game day and then you realize, you know what, I'd rather be in the stands than sit on my couch. Well, that's where Game Time comes into play. It's an easy way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. Remember, when I was traveling during the NBA playoffs, I was able to go hit up the Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, all because of Game Time, having tickets available last minute. And with this money that I was able to save on those tickets, I was able to get some merch while I was there for a friend, as well as you can buy some more food, drinks, or even invite more friends if you wanted to. Game Time makes all that possible. So they make it fast and easy within the app. The prices on the app they actually drop the closer you get to that first pitch, especially at baseball games. I've been looking at it for the Oklahoma City Comets. And sure enough, tickets drop nicely. You get great deals and you get a clear view of the seats inside of the app. So Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. So it makes it easy to browse on the app for, any exciting upcoming MLB game. So checking out like the Royals, if you're close, like for me to Kansas City or even the Texas Rangers, there's a lot of those to offer. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, fall camp coming up. Who needs to break out the most to you for Oklahoma to be successful this year?
John, I'm so excited. We got fall camp in about a week, and now we get to really get past the talking season and really see who's who and who's ready to really show up and show out. But there's so many positions for Oklahoma that we still got questions on, and we want to see players develop. And so when I'm looking at this, John, I'm asking myself, all right, we've made a bunch of changes in certain spots, but we didn't make a bunch of big changes on defense. So what players need to have that breakout season? So number one on my list personally, Gentry Williams. We've seen the greatness of Gentry at his, in 23 before he was really banged up. And you were like, okay, this dude can play. He's got the size and the speed. He can lead himself into being drafted. He can be a day two guy, no problem. Then you didn't get him last year. The shoulder's messed up, had a whole bunch of cleanup surgeries, but it sounds like he's ready. To me, if there's anybody right now, top of the list, I don't even care about transfer, no, Gentry Williams. He comes out there and shows up and shows out, and he pops, man. Because we had questions last year, John, about the secondary. That was where we were like, okay, there's a lot of transfers in. We were shifting back and forth. We hadn't had an internal guys really show up until Eli Bowen pops. Now we need some more of the guys that were actually recruited to do that. And I think Gentry has an opportunity to do that. If he does it, John, I think the defense is going to take another leap from last year.
We've seen the flashes out of Gentry. For him,
Yes.
It's just about staying healthy. So prayers up for Gentry for a healthy season in 2025. If he does, he can really help lock down one side of the field. For me, number one, Jacob Sexton. We've been hearing the promise and the potential of Jacob Sexton since he came in 2022. Really, really good size, good athlete, good strength. Again, injuries have limited him. He played a bunch of snaps last year, and it was an up and down season for everybody on the offensive line. Can he take what he had last year, the 600 plus snaps that he got, and really take a next step? and become somebody that can solidify that left tackle spot for Oklahoma.
Yeah, Jacob Sexton's a very interesting one, especially because they've moved him from left tackle to left guard and back and forth. More so because of, not only injury situations, but also, skill set. He's got the size and the strength to be a really good guard on top of playing tackle. And yeah, he's given us some flashes. I mean, I think that Florida State game, man, it would have been awesome if he would have lasted past warmups. We were excited about him as a true freshman. And then he comes back late in 23, and you're like, okay, I think we've got something here. And then now, in 24 last year, 24, which wasn't, the year that you would have wanted with all of the ups and downs. So yeah, I think he's one that would jump up. He should be fighting for that left tackle starting spot. Let's put it that way. I think another one, though, my second one on the list, going back to the offensive line, I think is Logan Howland. Okay. We saw some flashes from him when he started to get himself grounded. Remember, he's a converted tight end when he was recruited, and he's still big, 6'6", 320 pounds at least. And you start to see, okay, can he get anchored and really handle that side? Well, it sounds like he's toughened up, from spring ball. So you're like, okay, what can we get out of Logan coming into the season? We had a lot of people that had surgeries or whatnot, and so I'm wondering if he's going to really fight hard for that left tackle spot. We know Michael Fasusi's right there. We know that he's the name to watch the most outside of Derek Simmons on the right side, or even Fasusi on the right side too, and Fauché. But I think Logan Howland, it's time. It's either it's this year or it's no year to me.
Yeah, because if he doesn't grab a job this year, it's Michael Fasusi's job next year.
Most likely, yeah.
I mean, for me, the number 2 guy that I'm looking at, this is a wide receiver, Zion Kearney.
Oh, yeah.
The potential's there. He's shown flashes. He stepped up in the Armed Forces Bowl, had a big reception, dropped one, but he showed that he can get open. And that's what you need. You got to have guys that are able to get open. He's got the athleticism. He's got good speed. He's a good route runner. Now it's about opportunity. And the opportunity is there for him because in fall camp, you're likely not going to have Jovantae Gibson going every single day or Jaydn Gibson available every single day in practice. Jermichael Carter, a guy that John Mateer is excited about, he's going to be ramping up. He's not going to be running with the ones, the first few weeks of fall camp, if he does get to run with the ones at all during fall camp. So Zion Kearney, the opportunity is right there for him to become a starter for this offense week 1 against Illinois State, and then to hold down a starting role out on the outside with Deion Burks playing in the slot, and then maybe a Jovantae Gibson on the other side. There's an opportunity for Zion here. Snatch it and hold on to it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we brought in 5 wide receivers in this and out of the portal, 6 wide receivers. I think it
ended up being 6 with Jermichael Carter. Yeah.
Yeah. So ZK is going to have to step up. Now, granted, we expect ZK to do that because Zion Kearney's name has been coming up as a guy that has been moving around with some ones, and it looks like he's seizing that opportunity. And it sounds like Mateer is working good with him on top of the other guys. So yeah, I could totally see. Like I said, we've hyped him up. I expect Zion Kearney to be the other guy on the other side. I'll stick to the wide receiver room with you. I'm trying to see what Isaiah Satania is going to give us.
Let's go.
Because think about it, Deion Burks, is the expectation is he's going to pop. He should be healthy and not dealing with shenanigans at any other positions. Deion Burks should go out there and put up some numbers, especially deep. But Satania has been hyped. Mm-hmm. He's been hyped for his speed, return game, all of that. And the good thing is you can put him in a return game and be okay with that because you've got so many more receivers that you're ready to play. Mm-hmm. But if he pops as the other slot guy, John, which we can expect. I mean, remember, we talked to Jordan Rogers. He talked about how he saw in Ben Arbuckle's offense, there's a lot more wide receivers than you really had tight ends. That could be another one right there.
Yeah, considering that we don't really know what we're going to get out of tight ends, you might see a lot more 4 and 5 wide receiver sets than you're accustomed to seeing at Oklahoma.
Right.
Last guy for me, Peyton Bowen at safety. The talent is there. The instincts are there. He's athletic as all get out. Now I got to just see the guy go perform and play consistently. He's going to be playing against or next to an experienced Robert Spears-Jennings, but with uncertainty at cornerback, you can't afford to have any weak links at safety. So Peyton Bowen, like, now's your time, man. You were a 5-star prospect that Notre Dame wanted, that Oregon wanted, that Oklahoma ended up landing, that everybody in the country wanted to get their hands on. Now it's time to go show why. Like, it's your time, my friend.
This is his time. Adding to that, though, as you mentioned, Peyton Bowen's a very good one because he's got that trio of guys that are ready to take somebody's spot. And we heard about them all week at SEC Media Days, especially when Oklahoma was up. Each player talked about him. They mentioned Robert Spears-Jennings talked about that trio. BV mentioned the trio. We know that trio is they're ready to be the next big name in Oklahoma. My third person, BV has been hyping him recently, is Jaydn Helms.
I think this is your fourth guy, but I'm gonna let you ride with it.
Is it my fourth? I thought it was is it my fourth guy? It is my fourth guy. You're right.
Okay, let's hear some Jaydn. Let's get some Jaydn Helms hype to close out the segment, Jay.
I need Jaydn Helms to give me something because if BB's hyping you up and you're healthy finally,
now's the time.
Come on,
let's go.
It's time, dog. It's time. And you're right. This is my fourth player. My bad, y'all. But we'll keep going.
we got to get that last little bit of Jaydn Helms hype in there because again, Brent Venables mentions the guy. He's somebody that we've been hoping to see on the field consistently at any point over the last 4 years. He just hasn't had an opportunity to stay healthy. Lo and behold, here we are, 2025, and the 4-star tight end out of Kansas or Nebraska. He's Nebraska. Out of Nebraska.
He's a Nebraska
looking
kid,
like he's healthy
him
now.
And McIntyre. Yes, exactly. We need that.
So if he can break out, it will do wonders for Oklahoma's tight end room. What can we expect from the running back rotations, cornerback rotations? We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Ever wish managing your money was easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. With whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When we started tracking our spending, we noticed that, hey, man, we were spending a little bit too much on going out to eat. Well, we were able to figure that out through Monarch as they were able to delineate and segment how we were spending our money. My wife and I decided, hey, we got to cut back on eating out. We were able to find some subscriptions that we didn't feel like we needed anymore through Monarch Money, and we're able to cut those out as well. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Fall camp, it's coming up. We cannot wait. We're now less than 40 days away from the start of the 2025 college football season when Oklahoma takes on Illinois State later this summer. We will give you our game-by-game predictions. We'll discuss order of finish for the Oklahoma Sooners, what our expectations are. So make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcast. But Jay, running back rotation was a popular topic when I asked the Locked On Sooners everydayers on YouTube and social media, what can we expect from the running back rotation this year, Jay?
Yeah, so of course, Jaydn Ott is your main guy. The man number one is Jaydn Ott. But the big question is who's right behind him, though, John? And I understand why fans is asking that question because me and you have asked that question too. When we look at it, you look at the rotation, you're like, okay, who's going to be the second person to come into the game? And I'm wondering how much Jovantae Barnes will we get, right? You're in a situation where he's a senior. This is his last year. He's not going to be back after this year. Do you play him more? Or do you really lean in on the youth movement of a Taylor Tatum and an Xavier Robinson? That's a really big question to me in how we're going to move forward with it and what DeMarco Murray is going to do. But if I'm looking at it, since this is pre-fall and we're preparing for fall camp, we'll talk about this right before game one, of course, at the end of August. So make sure you hit the bell notification and subscribe and be ready for it. But I'm expecting us to see some Jaydn Ott with some Xavier Robinson, especially on short downs. I think if you do a rotation and you give Ott a break, you're probably going to see more Barnes than Tatum just today. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think probably you see Jovantae Barnes working between the 20s, and then passing situations, you're probably going to see more, Barnes, Tatum. Although Xavier Robinson, he's a good pass catcher. I think that's an underrated element of his game. It's going to be really fascinating to see because, yes, Jovantae Barnes going into his last year, he's a dude that's been loyal to Oklahoma. He grinded last year. He was one of the hardest working players on the team last year. His effort was relentless at times, and you kind of want to reward that, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, understand you want to get your young guys touches too. So I'll be curious, do they try to redshirt Xavier Robinson and Taylor Tatum? Do they try to minimize their workload, understanding like they're not going to have to carry the load this year, but in 2026, it's them. It's Xavier Robinson and Taylor Tatum and Torrey Blaylock. It's your show at that point. So do they try to keep a little tread off the tires or keep some of the tread on the tires? Sorry, I messed up that analogy, and not overuse them this year when you've got veterans and Jaydn Ott and Jovantae Barnes, and then you can sprinkle in those three younger guys. That's going to be a fascinating question. I don't think they can afford to not play the young guys if they're just better. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't just sit them just to be loyal to Jovantae Barnes. You got to go win games. And so you've got to put your best players out on the field to win games. I'm sorry about your feelings.
Yeah, games and wins are of critical. Wins are critical. But Jovantae Barnes can really contribute to that, though. Like he's your hardest worker, and he can block. So we might not see much of him, unfortunately. And it's the running back room is improved. Like I expect us to see some Torrey Blaylock at some point.
I hope so.
Like at his size and power, I mean, he could push his way up to where he's playing a lot more than we anticipate, and we're going to end up in the portal to go grab somebody else because somebody else is going to end up leaving because Torrey Blaylock is that darn good. And so I can see us getting him some run as well. I want Taylor Tatum to pop. He needs to pop and show his shiftiness like Jaydn Ott and show us that he's that dude, because I would love for him and Xavier Robinson to be your two-headed monster come next season, that they're the two guys that you run the most, and then really run Torrey Blaylock right after that, him as well as whomever else you have in the backfield. Maybe Andy Bass if he's healthy. That would be dope. But I want Tatum and Xavier Robinson to pop. X-Rob. I really want that combo to pop.
And I think they've earned the right to get significant opportunities. Regardless of the Taylor Tatum fumbles, he's flashed the potential, right? So you want to get him on the field. Xavier Robinson, he showed what he's capable of against Alabama last year.
Yeah.
But again, Jovantae Barnes, he's a solid player. And you got to have guys like him. He's one of your glue guys on this team. He's a leader on this team. So you're going to have him on the field. It's just a matter of how do they manage the rest of the running back carries. There's just not enough carries to go around. At cornerback, Jay, what do you think this is going to look like? Because we're expecting it to be Gentry Williams and Eli Bowen starting on the outside, but Brent Venables was very complimentary of Cortland Guillory. We know that Jacoby Johnson is a player that they like. They didn't go and add anybody in the transfer portal, which tells you that Jay Valai likes this group, Brent Venables likes this group, and even Jim Nagy likes this group, because he could have gone to find somebody in the spring portal window, but he didn't.
I mean, yeah, the freshman class, we brought in a trio of corners and Malik Hawkins with Cortland Guillory, as well as Tristan Haynes, who Haynes was courted heavily by Georgia. They really wanted him. Mm-hmm. And so to me, with the young guys you have with Devon Jordan as well as JJ Newcomb, you know that you've got a good, solid group, especially with depth. But Cortland Guillory's just a dog, man. He's one that he feels like he's been overlooked, and he's out there to prove everybody wrong. And so to me, I can see that rotation maintaining with Gentry and Eli, and then you go into like a Newcomb, and because Jacoby is athletic as hell, and I think that he has all the potential, but he plays like he got 2 left feet. He be always tripping and falling, and that's be killing me, man. Like, dude, I've been hyping you up like crazy, and every time I look up, what happens, John? Trips up and falls. I need him to not do that this year, which I think he's working on his footwork, and he'll get there because he's so athletic. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing everybody raves about, his athleticism. I just need him to show me that.
But I wonder if some of it was a conditioning thing, because he really just got his first significant playing time in the second half of last year.
I mean, fair. It's a true freshman. Yeah. I mean, you could be nerves are there too.
He just hadn't played much. Like, well, he wasn't a true freshman because he came into that 2023 class, right?
I think you might be right.
And so it had been almost 2 years since he'd played significant football. It's kind of hard to get your sea legs back underneath you at that point. So
yeah, he's a
hopefully
junior.
This offseason, the conditioning's gotten a lot better. He's feeling a little bit more comfortable with his legs underneath him, because you're right, man. He's got all the talent to be a really good player for Oklahoma's defense. It's just got to bring it all together. But yeah, it's a deep room. And again, as much as we love Gentry and Eli, they got to put the best players out on the field. And if it's a true freshman like Cortland Guillory, or it's Jeremiah Newcomb, who hasn't really played a lot, they're going to put the best players out on the field because they need to go win games. And you can't let cornerback be a position that keeps you from winning football games. I mean, that's kind of where they ended up last year at times, was the Missouri game. You know, cornerback kind of sunk them. The LSU game, coverage sunk them, not just corner, but safety coverage as well. So you got to have that locked down, because you know the front seven is going to be really, really good. You know your safety group is going to be really good. Cornerback has to step up. It's one of the positions on this team that has to be significantly improved from what it was last year for Oklahoma to go be a legit contender. And that's
Jacoby's too good.
Yeah, he's
too athletic to not be that good. So yeah,
he's a good player. There's a reason why people were trying to pull him out of the state of Oklahoma as well. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on every podcast platform, not podcast platform. That's my John F. Kennedy. Sorry, I digress. I've been fighting a cold, man, all weekend, so I'm a little bit foggy. Anyway, follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can follow me at John9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite podcast platforms and social media platforms as well. But until next time, he's Jay. I'm John. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. Yeah, his podcast.
Yeah,
Cootie's got him, man.
Oklahoma Sooners this year. It's getting worse.
Cootie's got him.
It's just getting worse.